How's it going, guys? I'm glad we're able to join you tonight. And I really like that we have a structure tonight, but we're not so structured to know every single topic because I think there's a lot going on. And I think we can have a lot of nuanced conversation about what's going on if we don't structure it in such a systematic way because I do think that kind of old model is changing. And I do have some ideas of what may be changing beyond that if we need to get into that topic. But how are we doing tonight, guys? Gov and Donnie, of course, joining me.
I'm all right. I haven't had enough time to watch sports, but spring break's been great. So
Sometimes taking a break is very, very valuable. I was telling Gov before I joined the show, Donnie, that I've decided not to play NBA until the playoffs because of all the influx of are we a playoff team? Are we not? Like you got players resting for load management because of the playoffs. You got players resting because of the playoffs. On the opposite end, you might play for a team like the Oklahoma City Thunder. I don't know why I blanked on the name like they were the Los Angeles Rams and St. Louis Rams. I almost didn't believe it, but I guess it's because it's like every time you want to believe in the Thunder, something bad happens. It's kind of like the Clippers. Every time you want to think like, oh, the Clippers might actually be a good team, then Paul George gets injured and like injury bug just bites.
I mean, both of those have curses. The Clippers are cursed because the Lakers run LA, and the Thunder are cursed because they're actually the Supersonics, and they'll never be good in Oklahoma.
Well, that's what I mean, Gov.
Those are just like things that are that you kind of just got to deal with those teams.
Well, speaking of St. Louis, we are going to talk about the XFL and the Battlehawks and the rest of the XFL. But I did want to just like have an open dialogue sports conversation tonight. So did you guys want to steer the conversation one way or the other? And if not, it's okay just to like talk about whatever comes to mind. Because I do think we're at a pivotal point in sports.
I mean, the only thing that I think we haven't really even hit on at all that I think is interesting, like March Madness has been really crazy.
Madness! It's been madness.
It has been.
There's been the madness.
Alabama just lost.
As advertised, madness.
It usually does do pretty crazy, but I feel like this year's been even more ridiculous than the past few.
Oh, definitely.
Purdue had the biggest player in college basketball this year, and they lost to the shortest team in NCAA tournament history.
Isn't there one player who's like 5'8" right now playing?
Yeah, for Kansas. Noel.
Yeah.
But no, collectively, Purdue has a 7'4" big guy, and they lost to the shortest team.
Yeah, I mean,
tournament history. You mentioned Noel. There's been a lot of interesting cogs to the March Madness bracket that we just didn't expect. Of course, to Gov's point, you expect madness for March Madness. It's literally in the name. I mean, it's in the advertisement for Wendy's, which you guys are currently seeing. But the way the madness has occurred has been so unique this season.
It's not even like, usually you get those game-winning shots or whatever.
Right.
But it hasn't been that. It's just been it's been a completely different atmosphere for the tournament.
I mean,
just weird upsets.
We literally saw a coach almost get naked on the court. Like tuck off his shirt, started like belly dancing with the crowd. Like, I'm not kidding. Like, that happened. I forget what was it, Arkansas? And then we had like Penny Hardaway, the NBA legend, like actually caring Deion Sanders about college basketball again, throwing cups into the crowd when Memphis lost. It's been like the good, the bad, the ugly, and just madness in ways that I didn't think were even still possible, but still somehow relevant. It's been interesting. Any
Yeah,
other
Rob
takeaways?
Decker. I mean, that's really what I wanted to hit on. Quick topic, anyway.
Well, what do you guys think about my Panthers free agency so far? Because I really am starting to feel better and better and better and
I
better.
love
and
the
really
Shark
I
signing.
really hope we
Please.
don't. I knew we were going to. I knew the second we didn't get Mecole Hardman, we were going to get DJ Shark. Because the
So-
one thing we were missing was like a good downfield threat, and I really thought we were going to get Mecole after we signed Thielen. Once we didn't get him, I was like, Shark's the next best guy, and then maybe draft a speedster or two. Draft a couple of young, quick guys who can also play special teams and see if we can find a downfield threat.
Panthers have done a good job free agency wise.
Can I give you a weird DJ Shark stat that like sounds funny, but is also very true? He has only played for cat teams in his career.
I love that.
And this dates back to college. He played for.
Oh no! Oh God! I just realized I have to sing the song now. Oh Jesus!
Oh please
Oh
don't.
Jesus!
Thank God we have copy.
DJ Shark, DJ Shark, DJ Shark, DJ Shark.
I tried to hide behind copyright.
Oh
reasons.
God, I forgot about that. Oh my God.
So
I feel great about it. I just, oh my God.
it's so fun.
Oh, it's the best thing ever.
So have you heard the Zeke news lately?
Is he, let's say, are they thinking he's going to go to
Jets, Eagles, or Bengals?
Bengals could, honestly, yeah, the Bengals I think would be the best fit.
Bengals lose P. Ryan, bring in Zeke. I like
Zeke
the
Mixon would be a great one, too.
Mm-hmm. I really like that for the Bengals if they can pull that off. But even if he goes to the Eagles, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, because they lost Sanders, so now you have Zeke and Gainwell and Scott. Like that could also work.
By the way, I didn't even get my fun stat of the day out of the way, guys. You guys let me say this DJ Shark thing before we completely move on. He played for LSU, then he played for
Forgot about the Tigers.
he played for the Jacksonville Jaguars, the Detroit Lions, and now the Panthers. So that's that. But I have to say, and you guys tell me if I'm wrong, and we can cover as much free agency as you guys want. But I think the Cowboys did Ezekiel Elliott a disservice. I don't think he is like the superstar he was drafted to be, but I don't think the Cowboys have used Ezekiel Elliott correctly in the last 3 years. Basically, since Kellen Moore got there. Like, since Kellen Moore took over, I felt like they've disvalued his skill set and he could have been used differently. That doesn't mean that he'll be a superstar wherever he goes, but I do think like his value could be better utilized if in the right system. And that system to me is the Bengals. I do agree.
Yeah, I mean, I don't love how he was used at the end of his career in Dallas, but I also don't know what he is anymore. Because the offensive line deteriorates, and then he also deteriorates, and I don't know what if it's more of the O-line, if it's more of Zeke.
Well, so let's play this game though. Would you rather have him than Jamal Williams?
I don't know.
See, I would. And if Jamal Williams can get as many touchdowns and goal line opportunities, that's definitely his skill set to me, Donnie, is his nose for the end zone. And you can say like, oh, that's just lucky. But like I've said it multiple times in different avenues of football, there is just a intrinsic value to staying healthy. Like I truly believe that even talking about different universes, different sports, LeBron James' ability to stay healthy is why he is considered to me one of the best players, because I don't actually think LeBron James is the most on-court talented player in the league. But I do think his ability to stay healthy this long has allowed him that opportunity, similar to Tom Brady as well. So
I am also no, you continue.
no, go ahead, Donnie. I was just gonna say, like, I do think there is a ability to find the end zone, and like Zeke does do that. Jamal Williams does do that. There is a skill set there.
I agree. I know we just brought up the Panthers. I'm very happy with the Patriots free agency, getting Gesicki, who I really like, James Robinson, Juju, and Riley Reeve, who's, he's past his prime and whatnot, but not a bad signing there either.
I say, you didn't get him for like expensive, so serviceable offense.
Yeah. I really like how this free agency for the Patriots has gone.
I hate your team, and I've hated, like, morally, I've hated your team for a long time. You know that. I will never shy away from that.
Can I second that motion?
But, like, honestly, Donnie, I hate what they've done. Even if I tried to take my unbiased nature out of it, for the first time, like, before I could just hate Tom Brady for the cheating allegations, or hate Bill Belichick for the cheating allegations, or like hate, this idea of Robert Kraft, or, Matt Patricia for his homophobic tendencies, different things. But like on the field actions, I actually, for the first time, will say I think the Patriots aren't in a bad spot. The only signing I like that they made was the Juju Smith-Schuster move. I don't really like anything else they've done.
They haven't paid for any of the other guys like big money. You get rid of Jonnu Smith, who needed to go, and bring Gesicki. I think that works.
But exactly. Well, here's my point, though.
I don't think they're going to be a playoff team. I'll say that.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask you, because I knew you were a fanboy. I was about to ask Gov whether he thinks my bet or your excitement was the right move here, because I will say on FanDuel, which I am a part of FanDuel, we'll be doing more FanDuel content because I wanted to be diverse and not just be beholden to DraftKings. But to this point, is I bet the Patriots under 9.5 win total this season and to miss the playoffs.
I like that bet.
Yeah, I can see that. Like, even with the additions, I don't think they take that big of a step forward.
Yeah, and it's not so much about the additions.
They really just filled spots that they needed to or were losing.
Well, and I just think the rest of the division got better. The Jets potentially get better with Aaron Rodgers, even though that's not official yet.
Buffalo's just like Buffalo still.
Well, Buffalo, I really like their Damian Harris signing. I don't know how you guys feel about Harris, but I think that's an upgrade from what they had.
Well, I mean, they lost Singletary. They add Harris. So now they have Bruiser Harris and then James Cook is their more like...
Yeah, I think Harris is significantly better than Singletary.
Definitely. At the role he'll need to play. Especially if you now, like, this just tells me that they believe in James Cook as that passing down third role. Maybe you can step into the, like, maybe he'll end up Ramondre Damian Harris at some point. But they clearly believe that Cook is that.
Well,
to make this kind of a switch.
And I'm not the biggest Doug McDermott fan. So I don't think he is a good coach, even though I do have some relations to the Bills, like, in their coaching staff.
I'm laughing so hard. You mean Sean McDermott? Doug McDermott is the stupid guy on the Spurs.
Oh yeah,
I'm dying. I'm sorry. I just had.
Honestly, I probably would rather have Doug McDermott coaching my team, because at least you have the excuse he knows nothing about football. Sean McDermott's supposed to know football, and I just feel like ever since old boy left for the Giants, they haven't been relevant, won't be relevant. In fact, I think that team is cursed. We talked about curses earlier. I don't like anything that the Bills have done coaching wise at all. I think why am I blanking on his name? The Seven Dwarfs.
Dopey.
Yeah, I know the Giants coach.
Dable.
Mac. Wait, no, not McAdoo, right? No,
Dable.
So I think Dable was a genius of that team. So much so, I would have paid him anything to stay with the Bills. I think Sean McDermott is doomed to fail. I think he's like the worst head coach in the league, kind of bad. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but I've always had that notion. But if you disagree with me, he did say that he thinks that Harris could be his version of Derrick Henry. Like that's how they plan to employ these two gentlemen, these two running backs, is Harris will play the thumper role, which seems obvious, but like when you have a coach that believes that you can raise your game to a Pro Bowl level, which obviously if you're even coming close to a Derrick Henry comparison, that's what he thinks. That's interesting. I don't know if you guys want to comment there. I also saw.
I mean, I think you're way too harsh on Sean McDermott. He's had one losing season. He brought Tyrod Taylor to the playoffs his first year, I believe it was. I mean, he's had success at the table.
I'll say this about that. This is McDermott's hot seat year. He has to get this done, or him and Josh Allen are both kind of like, well, question mark.
Yeah, I mean, we're already getting a little bit to the point of like, what's happening? But
I don't think
at least this year they had the excuse of like, oh, Vaughn got hurt.
And to be honest, I don't, even if it gets through this year and it doesn't work, I don't think they blame it on Josh Allen, and that's where you get a new coach. You put it all on McDermott.
Kind of like the
so that's why I'm like, I wouldn't. I'm with Logan, but I would still give him the benefit of the doubt of give him one more year to see if he can get over this hump, and then you can say he's just crap.
Let me preface this also by saying, like, I like it when you do things that are so outside the box or like that are so different in your creativity and your craftiness that you're willing to do something that bucks the trend. Like, I would still tell you that hiring Jeff Saturday was a smart move by the Colts mid-season, because at that point, what do you have to lose by trying somebody out who's never done it before? And you're literally experimenting when you're not going to hire a good coach mid-season anyways to turn around a franchise, more than likely. Like, even when Dan Campbell did it with the Dolphins, he still didn't keep his job, even when he had a winning
the Raiders coach, interim coach. He didn't keep his job. And
right.
He was like, great.
Allen.
Great.
Correct. So at that point, you might as well try something unique.
No, it wasn't Allen. It was Rich what? What's the last name? It starts with a B. I think it's a B.
Pistachio?
Yeah, I think that was it. He's a special teams coach now.
Yeah. So, but that's my point is, like, I just like it when people try different things. Like, did the XFL get it right completely? No, but I love that they have, for example, the transparency, and they have the referees mic'd up, and then they have their referee, their like skybox for NFL or not NFL. I did it too. I'm a victim of circumstances, just associating professional football with the NFL, but where they have their officiating booth mic'd up, and so you hear, their discussions, and the fact that you can challenge everything. That doesn't mean they get everything right, but I kind of love that transparency. That
the last thing I wanted to hit on, not XFL wise, I mean, the Lions had CJ Gardner-Johnson go there. I know we hit on all of our favorite teams, but I think we can't avoid talking about CJ Gardner-Johnson and Jamal Williams' replacement, which I don't love the Montgomery signing, but I get it. It needed to happen probably.
Well, let's do this then. Let's talk about maybe not even like player specific things, but like what are some impacts to free agency that can still be made, that have been made, that you think are going to make fantasy impacts? Like, anything that's going under the radar, over the radar, in between, any type of thing like that's not being discussed in ways that you would like it to be discussed.
I mean, I think the interesting thing is the Browns. I haven't heard many people talk about the Browns trading for Moore at all. Right after the Hardman signing, which I think the Hardman signing was terrible to the Jets. I don't understand why they do that. But they trade away Elijah Moore, and the Browns now have 3 wide receivers that I think they can trust: Cooper, Peoples-Jones, and Moore.
I'm not 100% sure you can trust Moore or Peoples-Jones, but it is at least 3 receivers I would say you can roll, like, serviceably. You can roll that out with a good quarterback and a good run game, and you're good.
When you include Nick Chubb and then you include David Njoku, could you say that the Browns might be one of the more underrated offensive teams?
Yes,
definitely.
Especially I would definitely put that.
Yeah, especially if they get a guy like Odell to come. Even if you think he's washed, he's still more talented than a lot of receivers. You know,
we talked about morality in terms of the Patriots, and a lot of that got overshadowed because of championships. Whether you actually want your sports to involve morality or not, I know a lot of people have that distinction. A lot of people honestly have that emotional pull towards sports. Like, that's why they watch it. Like, there are different avenues you can take as a fan, and both of them are serviceable and suitable to what you want. But if we are being honest, if Watson gets back to a medium level of what he was versus what he could be, I don't
people forget how good Deshaun Watson was at first. Like, he was top 5 type player.
That's what I'm
quarterback position.
That's what I'm saying, Donnie, is like, okay, so let's assume he's not going to be the high-end talent you once thought he could be. But let's not assume he is what he was last year. He's somewhere in the median. That offense is very underrated.
Yeah. I mean, who's to say Watson can't get back to that level? Like, he was consistently at that level for a long time, and he is still very young.
Agreed. Like, and this wasn't an injury really that took, like, he's had plenty of time to heal. Like, it's yeah. From what I saw last year, like, he can totally just step. Yeah, from what I saw last year, he can totally just step into this offense with a full off season and be perfectly good.
So, is there any other free agent takes that you want to get off your chest, Gov?
Let's see. Not off the top of my head. I like, at this point, I kind of want to see what some teams do in the draft.
Yeah, I'm interested though. The last player I'm really like, where is he gonna go? Is Bobby Wagner. We haven't heard much news, and I know he visited the Ravens today.
You know what I heard, Donnie, is that he would be willing to listen to his former general manager with the Detroit Lions and potentially sign back up with Brad Holmes, who did serviceably, have him under contract with the Los Angeles Rams. And if Brad Holmes is able to,
Brad Holmes wasn't there when they got Bobby, I don't think.
I was careful not to say like drafted him, but I do believe they had some crossover there. And
I don't think so, but I think Bobby went there last year, if I'm not mistaken.
But wasn't he there before? I'm pretty sure he was there before too. I could be wrong.
No, he was never on the. He was a Seahawk the whole career. Then I think he got cut, and then he left with Russ. He left the same day as Russ, basically. See, he's only been there for a year.
I'm okay with being wrong, and I think that's an important qualification too. And I want to mention that what if Bobby is a late signing after the draft? We mentioned the draft. Like, you guys got to realize that sometimes we don't have to always make the splashy first move. Sometimes the best move is the move.
Well,
made later.
Especially a veteran linebacker. He's probably someone who doesn't come in until training camp anyway.
Right.
well, and so I'm sure a lot of these free agents are waiting on Aaron Rodgers. Like, if no one really knows what's happening with Aaron Rodgers, we can all assume he's going to the Jets. but-
It's probably not even Aaron Rodgers because that's a trade, but there is a lot of movement that's
Right.
Yeah,
waiting. There's a lot of movement waiting on Lamar's bullshit to happen and sign.
Yeah, well, we have 2 quarterback moves waiting to happen. We have no idea what's going on.
Well, just like how I'm okay with being wrong, I think Gov would tell you that like all the Discord channels that we're involved with DFS, it's not that like, oh, you have to be a genius to play XFL or NFL or any of these other sports. It's if you know the process, then you can make sense of a lineup. And I've noticed that a lot as a Lions fan, to kind of go back to that, but from a different angle than you guys, is now we're getting this like, oh, the Lions could actually be good narrative, right? And then it's like some Lions fans are like, well, I don't want people on the bandwagon. It's like, I don't give a damn about the bandwagon. I'm not on the bandwagon. I'm the one driving the truck. I've been here since day one. If people want to jump in the back of the cab of the car that I've already been driving for decades, I'm fine with that, because that means that my teams are going to be on national television more often. They're going to be in prime time, which guess what? I'm a working man. So that primetime game is going to be easier for me to see. It's going to be on more local stations. It's going to allow Gov to see my team at the bar where he works, and not have to have the local Detroit station. So like, I'm fine with more of an exposure to my favorite team, or to DraftKings contests like Showdown and things like that, because that gives me an opportunity to make more money, because my knowledge of the Detroit Lions does not change based on everyone else's exposure.
Yeah,
And I think that goes underappreciated a lot.
Well said.
By the way, I'm just catching up on some news while we're talking. Nelson Aguilar went to the Ravens. I mean, another really middle tier wide receiver. I don't get it. What are they doing over there?
They like, if you're gonna just fill it with all these low end mid tier guys, how do you not pay Lamar? Just give him
That's
money,
right.
Like at that point, like that's the real problem. Is like, you're not even going and spending money somewhere to make the team better all that much, where it's like, well, okay, they need to spend this money here, so Lamar should probably just take less for the team. If you're going to do that, like, unless this is just the first sign of, okay, if these are the moves they're going to start doing, it's them trying to figure out a way to pay Lamar.
Let's do this.
They got to make some, this just screams they got to make moves to then come with a second offer. It's like, okay, let's make a couple moves and see what our next best offer to him can actually be.
Let's do this fun exercise, okay? Because everyone would tell you that the Ravens have devalued wide receiver, whether that was offensive coordinator Greg Roman's philosophy, whether that's Jim Harbaugh's philosophy, whether that's like the ownership and just like their legacy of like, we're a legacy franchise, so we can do it our way. Whatever the case may be, they have devalued the wide receiver, okay? We can acknowledge this and also say like, this was not the best wide receiver class for talent. And you guys mentioned it, we have the draft still. We have guys like Johnson. We have guys like Hyatt from Tennessee. You have options. One of the fastest wide receivers is also one of the smallest wide receivers, so no one knows how he's going to fit positionally. But if you were in position of the Ravens and wide receiver was the talking point of your franchise, what would you have done differently this offseason to fix that?
I'm trading for a receiver in the draft. I'm giving up a first round pick for a receiver.
if not in the draft, like I clearly already have Hopkins. Like something. I've done something at wide receiver.
I agree. And I hate to keep going back to it, but sometimes when the weekend special is so good, you just got to eat the Eggs Benedict, and you deal with the calories later on. I'm sorry, but that's the same reason I celebrated Jeff Saturday, even though it didn't work, because it was so different. It was so nuanced, and it was aggressive, and it was trying something new, and it was like, I'm going to take the bull by the horns, and we're going to shake things up, to use the Vince McMahon reference. And I just feel like the Ravens, they might not have gotten better, they might not have gotten worse, but that mediocrity isn't going to get you anywhere either. So you might as well try something else. I mean, at this point, I would even be okay with them bringing in a Chad Ochocinco. Like, even if it is just publicity to be like, oh, we brought him in for a tryout, just to say, like, you're trying to do something different, or even like a Cam Newton to put some pressure on Lamar Jackson. Now, I would disagree with that. I think Lamar has earned the right to get paid, and I support him as a player. But as a franchise, if you're going to be like, take us serious, I just feel like you have to do things that make sense. And for me, the Ravens haven't made sense. And they haven't made sense for a while.
My thing is, like, 10 years ago, we didn't need these top-tier wide receivers on Super Bowl teams. I guess you could say the Chiefs really didn't have a top, but they had Kelsey. Wide receiver, you can't devalue that position anymore. It's not like it used to be. But you used to be able to get away with not having any good top wideouts.
Donnie, was that just a misnomer? Was that the old guard or the ancient way of thinking? Was that wrong? Maybe if we had, a Jamar Chase or a Justin Jefferson back in the 90s, that would have been the goddamn way to build. So maybe the players have reached the level and they have made that position valuable. Like, for example, maybe Lamar Jackson's ability to rush the ball has made him more important than Michael Vick. Has brought a different type of appreciation for the position. And I think both things can be true.
Also, I don't know if we want to keep going on about this, because I feel like we could go on and on about how the Ravens have systemically failed their quarterback here. And I really just hate what the Ravens have done lately.
I mean, to be fair, like, again, we could go on with this forever, but, like, they've never really done well when they needed the, like, focus on the quarterback. All good Ravens teams have been built around defense, run. Like, like, who's won their Super Bowls? Trent Dilfer and Joe Flacco. They are not prolific quarterback talent, whatever.
But
like,
Joe Flacco at least went off his year that he won the Super Bowl.
Yeah, no, I'll get, like, the year he won the Super Bowl, he had, like, the best playoff run you could have throwing the football outside of, like, some of, like Brady and Manning have had some really good playoff runs. But, like, it was up there with them, along with having that Baltimore defense. And I think that's the thing. Like, you still have all those same people in place that are going to be good at building the team that way. But what do you do when you need to build around your quarterback? Like, they don't know how to go get wide receivers. They don't know whether or not they should pay Lamar. Like, they're kind of struggling because they probably have it in their head that we could probably just get rid of Lamar, add two good defensive pieces, and just run the fucking ball.
With Gardner Minshew.
Yeah, they probably think they could. Or if not Gardner Minshew, then like man, I just had him in my head, and now I can't remember his name. I'll remember it in a second. Oh.
I mean, there's just ridiculous quarterbacks. I mean, like, that they've won with, and I don't get it. Just because something's worked once doesn't mean it's going to work all the time.
Tannehill. They could win with Ryan Tannehill.
Yeah, good luck with that.
But I know they could. I know they could. They could do it just like Tennessee, but they'd have an even tougher defense, along with the King Henry style run game. You could win with Ryan Tannehill doing that. Like, that's the thing. They think they could do that, which is why they don't want to go get wide receivers and pay Lamar. Like, it's clear that's just Baltimore's guys. But that's it's something to say when you have an organization that's very solid like that. Like, Pittsburgh will be good again because they're just going to build a good Pittsburgh team over the next couple years. And when they hit on like 2 good drafts, and then they'll be right there. Packers the same way. They because that's how they always do it. As long as they can get a quarterback that they trust for 15 years, they will build something that's decent around him. And then when he has his spike year, we'll see what they do. Rodgers had a spike year, won a Super Bowl. Brett Favre had 2 spike years and won a Super Bowl.
Well, you talked about a spike, Gov, and I want to bring this full circle here. We can have an ebb and flow conversation, and you can think we're talking about the Ravens too much, but really we're talking about a philosophized idea of what the NFL or professional sports have become and how you build things and how you structure things. Like, for example, to come full circle, we talked about in the NCAA tournament with basketball, and Houston has been one of the slowest teams this whole entire season. Now, they've also been very effective. So, like, you don't have to be like, oh, well, most teams run an up-tempo, style, or this style of basketball is entertaining to this group of fans, so therefore I need to use this style to get recruits. There are different ways to approach it. Deion Sanders can go to Colorado and be like, I am a social media influence. Even though I don't have a coaching influence, I have the professional pedigree, I have a pulse of the young people, and therefore I can attract talent that way. Where Nick Saban, he attracts talent his way. And so, like, what pisses me off about the Ravens or, organizations like the Ravens, like the Packers, for example, who also neglected wide receiver for a long time, are like, well, we've always done it this way, so therefore we're going to do it this way all the time. And they're not willing to change or adapt or even try to take on a different persona or be like, we owe it to our fans to try it this way. Like, no, go ahead, Johnny. You were going to say?
Yeah, no, I'm just going to say, like, sports, it's always been about you have to adapt to what's, working at the – it's always been copycat leagues. And usually, like, just because the Packers have had quarterbacks to build them out forever doesn't mean that they're going to have that in the future. Probably won't have another quarterback like that for a long time. And now they need to get to what the times are. They need to stack up that wide receiver group. It's always been about adapting. You have to adapt in these leagues.
Well, let me make this point really quick on. We'll get on to Gov's last point here. But so, Donnie, name your favorite type of cat, whether that be tiger, panther, house cat, whatever you can think of off the top of your head. What kind of cat comes to mind?
Yeah, panther. I mean, it's.
What about you, Gov? Think of a cat and give me just any kind of cat reference you can think of, even Garfield if you need to.
Pussy.
Okay, so no, you're fine.
I know. Thank you. I'm applauding myself too. Thank you.
But in all
I fell right into that one. Oh!
Hey, in all rationale, I'll fall into any kind of pit hole. I can make it work, man. But here's the thing, is whether you're talking about a panther or a different kind of sexual innuendo, it all depends on the environment in which you structure your conversations. And like, so Cam Newton could work. He's a running quarterback. He's not the same type of running quarterback as Lamar Jackson. Just because Mike White has proven to be valuable for the Jets that doesn't mean that Aaron Rodgers will prove valuable for the Jets. There are different levels of expectations and different levels of environmental cues that have an impact on things. Like Peoples Jones is probably been one of the more underrated wide receivers for the Browns, right? Now, is Elijah Moore underrated, Donnie? To your point, you were mentioning how that was a good signing, or has he just been misused to the point where you feel like he can be utilized better, therefore your value of him changes or the evaluation of him changes? You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
there are different times and different utilization skills to be applied.
Speaking of expectations, utilization, value, all that, you guys hear the Ben Simmons news or no?
I haven't. Just say he's been
Oh,
out.
I heard that he is out indefinitely.
Yeah, he has a nerve impingement in his back and will remain out of action while sides determine best course of treatment.
Doctor says I need a backiotomy.
Well, speaking of backbones and Ben Simmons, I had heard that there was a good chance that Ben Simmons wanted to get drafted, wanted to make money, and then had all the intentions, maybe potentially, of ending his career overseas where it started in Australia. Like he had no allegiance or like Americanization to the NBA where it's like, I want to be an NBA All-Star, or like I want to be, the next Michael Jordan. He only went to the NBA because he had the value to make the money and the profit margins made sense. And I don't begrudge that decision that he made, obviously, and also understand the scope in which he made that decision to say that it could be possible that we have seen the best of Ben Simmons or maybe even the last of Ben Simmons. And I think that's okay.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't know what to do with Ben Simmons at this point. I think it's pretty much over. It like again, back to like what we said with Watson. People don't remember how good Ben Simmons was considered when he got in the league. Like he was getting LeBron James comparisons and all that. It's so disappointing as to what has happened with his career.
But that speaks
as a fan.
Well, that speaks to your expectation, and I think as being a fanatic, Donnie, you have the right to have that fanatic response and not be considered foolish or illegitimate. Like, to want Ben Simmons to be better doesn't mean that you expect him to be better, if that makes sense.
I mean, I just can't believe how his career has turned out.
Yeah. Well, for me, a guy in a very similar vein, obviously more old school than your mindset, would be Josh Smith of the Atlanta Hawks. Like, one of the reasons I was so pissed off at Josh Smith was because I saw the potential of Josh Smith. So don't get it twisted to say like, oh, Donnie is hating on Ben Simmons or Gov has to feel one way or the other because he's a Panthers fan about Cam Newton. We can want the best of an athlete and still be disappointed with what they gave us based on what we thought they could have given us. You know what I'm saying? Like, both of those things are possible.
I mean, I think it's getting close to that XFL time, don't you?
Yeah, we could build a lineup here soon. Yeah.
Well, let's put a bow on it then and mention that, like, okay, so I know a lot of people were joking around that Josh Gordon would be the best wide receiver that the Ravens could bring in for free agency. But, like, we talked about expectations and, like, Peterson or Josh Gordon might be the best wide receiver in the XFL, and we'll put him in a lineup in a few minutes. That doesn't mean that we would put him in a lineup in week 1 of the next NFL season. So, like, expectations do matter as we transition to the next sport.
Yeah.
So let's do that then, because there is a lot of XFL news this week, and I think even if you don't know the news, it might be good because sometimes you can overreact to news, and we'll speak on that in just a few minutes.
Yeah. How about you break down some of the big news, and I'm gonna just run to the bathroom real quick.
Okay, this will be good because then what I'll do is I'll give you the headline, Gov, and you tell me if it matters or not.
Yeah, I can.
Okay, so the first thing I'd like to mention about the XFL, and maybe this is a great way to approach all the topics that we should talk about going forward, but I feel like this is very advantageous. Does it matter that the last game is on Monday, not on Saturday or Sunday this week?
Being that it is the first Monday night game for them, I do think this is a big deal. Like, if anything, it will be a huge thing to see if they get more Monday night ownership.
I was just
viewership.
How does it impact lineup builds, DFS? Because we have noticed, especially in the past with DFS, they used to have the Sunday night game be part of football builds in the past, and you did see like the 1 o'clock game.
The late game hammer is like, now we have we have had the 4-game slate where you still had a late game hammer on Sunday night, but now you have the true Monday night late game hammer.
You're
like
truly
that's
getting a 24-hour,
you get a full weekend worth of sweat.
I'm back.
Right. And this is the first time, I think, in maybe 3 years, we have seen a 24-hour impact on football. And I do think that's going to matter. Not to mention the Roughnecks, coached by probably the best coach in the league, maybe, of the entire XFL with.
I mean, about the only way it could be better is if it was St. Louis, just because they're going to pack that stadium if it's St. Louis.
I mean,
although I still think DC on a Monday night might get there.
Okay, so that's fair. So let me ask Donnie then the next, and we'll correlate all this, but I just want to get like quick hitters. Donnie, what if I told you that there is only one active available quarterback and he's minimum priced on the XFL DraftKings slate this week?
Yeah, I think that's huge news. Even if he is high ownership, it doesn't take much for quarterbacks to hit in the XFL from what we've seen anyway.
And really the way they have him priced now, like because of where min price is compared to other quarterbacks, he's legitimately like half price. So he doesn't even have, like, if he can get to 60-70% of what the other quarterbacks do, he'll still probably be a better value.
Well, let's talk about that from a positive and a negative standpoint. Gav or Donnie can take this. It's at some point, value is good, right? The day-old bread is a very good value if the bread is not moldy. But if that bread is expired, then don't buy it. Then it's going to taste like sourdough. So at what point is it a bad play because everyone might think he's a good player? So I do think at some point you have to react to the news one way or the other. You're either playing him or not playing him. You can't middle. You can't be in the middle somewhere.
I would play him in at least one lineup just because, I think that there's too much value to pass up on unless he's like 60% owned.
Bullshit, Donnie. I'm going to call you out a little bit here. I'm going to say you have one lineup. What do you do?
I play him.
Because in DraftKings, you can have 150 lineup. I need to hold your feet to the fire a little bit here.
Yeah. I'm playing him.
What about you, Gov? Curious. Calculation.
I don't know if I would play him just because there's going to be value this week in other places because of wide receivers no longer being on the team. This San Antonio thing not only comes with a new quarterback, but a new offensive coordinator and probably a new scheme. So there's going to be pieces you can take that will allow you to fit in a more consistent, expensive quarterback.
Well, speaking of consistency, the Brahmas have not been consistent because for the first like 5 weeks of the season, they were a running team coached by a different offensive coordinated, I guess you could say, by a different offensive coordinator. They then switched offensive coordinators, then became a pass happy team, going 4 wide more than any team, I believe, in this last week. The offensive coordinator was so delighted that he was an offensive coordinator for the first time in his life. He just like threw the kitchen sink at things. Like he didn't care. He was freewheeling, wheeling and dealing, just having a grand old time. Now that people have footage on him, does that change his philosophy? Does that change how people attack him? I mean, who knows? So these are some fun narratives. And I do think it's going to make us have to think about how we build. And really, Gov, to your point, I think that's the important thing. It's not whether you play him or not play him, play this quarterback over this quarterback, because like any quarterback could fail, or any player for that matter. It's how do you make it make sense for you, you know? And I think that's what we should focus on. So as I clear it out, what do we need to do this week? What's one thing we need to do?
We need to find low ownership value plays.
I would agree with that. Do you disagree with that, Gov?
I don't. Like I would if we could find a good one to start our lineup with there, that would be a great way to start.
The first thing that comes to mind is right here. So I was right about this, and that's not to toot my horn here. I had a feeling that Armstead was going to sit. He did sit. Smith was the only running back available. Smith smashed. He's not a good player. He got all the opportunities. In a league where you don't have any marquee guys and you're looking for value and opportunity, like these guys mentioned, he was a good play. This week, people might overreact to this number, and therefore he becomes a bad play because Armstead is questionable with, I think, some log practices. Although they be limited, do we play him or do we not know he's still limited? He's still questionable. Let's bring in the guy that's only got like a couple days, even with the team, let alone practice, and he's minimum price. I mean, there are different avenues you can go in that regard. So, like, not even using the players on the back of the jersey, what kind of mindset do you have when you look at doing that, Donnie? Like, when you say you want to find guys that are lower owned, where does your mindset go?
I mean, I'm thinking more so of so I want to have a history of someone hitting. I don't like the fact of going to a guy like Smith, even if he is the only main running back. I don't think he's very good at all. Even if with the opportunity, it could have just been a bad defensive game by the team he played.
It's hard to like give it like he broke off a 70-yard run. Like that's a big skew. It really is.
I mean, Balazs being out, I think, is interesting.
Well,
Like San Antonio has a lot of interesting things going on this week, I feel like.
And they changed their whole offensive identity. Speaking of identity, just to put a bow on Smith, he played linebacker, I believe, for the Oregon Ducks. So like when we talk about breaking off big runs or having things happen, it's like we have to understand that just because you're one way in the XFL doesn't mean that like it's going to stay that way. You have to be fluent to change. And so like even though Smith was a good player last week, doesn't mean he's a good play this week. You could overreact to a box score, and I agree not to play Smith this week. So it's okay to do a process of elimination to build this lineup. I think we can agree we're looking for low value guys, not Smith. Any other takeaways that you want to mention?
No, right now I'm just sort of pulling up my projections right now to see where I'm at. Because I'm looking at a good value. I'm trying to find a good value running back.
Yeah, I'm liking
because
what's
I love the value running back.
It's true, and Turner was also questionable. So we got Kalen Balazs out. Now Turner might be questionable because they knew Balazs was out, but I think Patrick is the play this week. Patrick was seeing touches with Balaj. Now that Balaj is out, I think Patrick is the play.
This is what I mean by a value, like a low ownership value play. Like we're pulling a rabbit out of the hat with this one, I feel like.
Well, Donnie, to your point, you wanted production with the upside, right? That was kind of what you were getting at. And Patrick isn't just this like off the pine guy that I mentioned with the DC Defenders, who are like that their backup has been on the team for less than a week. I don't even know his name. I think it's like Corrales, and he played for the Rams special teams and didn't even take an NFL snap as a running back. Patrick, like I say, has at least been on the field all season for the XFL. And he's not minimum price. Like he's a really good value, but he's not minimum. So I do think he'll slip behind the cracks of the people just looking at the box score.
It's actually his lowest priced week if you look at this.
Right.
He's dropped every time, but now he has the opportunity with Balaj being out.
And he is my second highest value running back.
But to that point,
they still have the running back Ryan Hill as like the top value, like even at his price, he's the top value running back.
So can we agree we're going to play Patrick?
I have no problem playing him. If we weren't playing him, the only other person I like this week would be Ellison from Seattle. I think they control that game, and if they do, it'll probably be a little more on the ground than it is DiNucci just slinging it.
Well, what if we did that as one of our flex positions and played Seattle's defense?
I would not mind that either.
Let's do that. Because a lot of times what you'll do is with defense, you'll wait till the end.
Although I would flip it just for PMR sake, put the Seattle running back in our running back slot, put the San Antonio guy in the flex, later game in the flex.
True. Now, are you worried at all with Bradwell? I think he played for your Panthers, so I was curious to know if you knew anything about him at all of this.
He was on our practice squad for a while. He never really got any good run with us, so I can't say I got to see a lot of him.
I saw him play last
I've seen
week.
him in preseason, yeah.
Right, but I saw him play last week, and honestly, he looked like a bad version of Peyton Hillis. He got a touchdown, so he looked good, but his utilization was putrid. I can't think of a better word.
Could he find holes? Is what you're getting at?
Say what?
Could he find the holes or no?
I don't even think he could spell the word hole. Like he couldn't find it. He couldn't even start. And the thing is I'm not even thinking.
The man's averaging 1.7 yards per carry.
Yeah. I'm not even saying he's a bad talent because we know in the XFL the offensive lines definitely play a factor too. It's not just up to him. It's just for whatever reason he didn't look effective, and the fact that he obviously isn't their pass catcher kind of devalues it. Like for me, you got to be able to do both things.
I got a question for you guys. Who did either of you have Luke Kennard in your NBA line, or you guys Logan play? Did you have Luke Kennard because he went off?
Oh, he's going off tonight too, really?
Yeah, 10 of 11 from 3, 23 minutes.
You know, the Pistons thought he was going to go off as a first rounder, and for whatever reason, he just never did. And then he turned himself into a JJ Redick consistent guy, but he's flashed somewhat this season, but it's been very hit or miss. I just think he's a hit or miss player.
He legit it's 10 3-pointers. That's what he has.
Yeah.
Like,
the game's
good
over.
Lord. No, yeah, I know. Like, good Lord. That's a good line for him.
But Klay Thompson gets that kind of recognition all the time, Gov, for just hitting threes. So,
but he has the defensive history of being a good defender, and it's different.
Well, the viability is definitely different. Like being on a championship team is different too. What I'm saying is the value of the 3-point shooter is valuable in today's NBA.
Oh, Jesus. 151, 114. So he played all the fourth quarter and probably just jack threes the whole. Oh, those were the only shots he took. He only took those 11 threes.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Good God. Wow,
But
Luke. Wow, Luke.
that's the
Thanks, Luke Kennard. I want you to pull up DK Live so you can show them Luke Kennard's picture so that everyone knows what just derailed this freaking show.
I refuse to do that. You can derail the show all you want. We can run.
I'm gonna send you the picture in Discord. You got to show the people oh my God, Luke Kennard's picture. Oh God.
Fair enough. Hey man, we can run this all the way off the tracks. We can talk about how Tom Kim is got his name if you want to, and we can talk about golf. But I refuse to act like Luke Kennard is like the next coming of Clay Thompson, or like because he got hot one night that he's like a mainstay in the NBA streets. That's not happening.
I just to have him go.
And I know Double J was talking about a different sport, and I know he's talking about matchups, but like we were talking about the NBA, like 3 weeks before the playoffs. Like, not that Luke Kennard is irrelevant. I know John Morant's been out, and Luke Kennard proved to be a valuable addition to them after being on the Clippers. But we are talking about Luke Kennard. We are not talking about a championship contender here, in my opinion. So let's get back to this draft.
Yeah, I always derail the show with certain stats like that.
Now, I'm okay with the derail and all and humor. I will bring when Gov does post the image. I will bring it up. But
I'm getting it right now. Don't worry. Don't
Yeah.
you worry.
You could just share your screen and he could switch it over, right?
yeah, truly, I'll do that. That's why I'm saying I'll wait for him to do it. Like, I have no problem. In fairness, like Luke Kennard was a former Piston. Like, I'm happy for him. I was joking around, having some fun there, but I am happy for him. But you do see weird things like that at the end of the NBA season, and that's why it chose not to play.
Okay, we were playing the Seattle back and defense, and we were switching Patrick.
Correct. Well, let's continue to talk about players that flashed or showed great upside when you didn't expect it. Like in Luke Kennard's case, the XFL is the perfect test case for this as well. Players getting opportunities to flash potential. I still think we play one of the highest projected guys, and we just play Peterson, even though he's expensive, because he's expensive. So I think his ownership's going to be down because of that. But I'm also afraid to do this because I don't want to play DiNucci.
Yeah, I also don't want to play DiNucci.
So are we okay playing Peterson and the running back if we don't play DiNucci?
I think that's a good way to get different this week. In a
Yeah,
week of
I
a
am.
bunch of value.
Agreed.
And I wouldn't normally do this, but I think in the XFL streets where you just want production, especially when we look at guys like Kirkland, who have been tremendously valuable, who are now on the IR. And sometimes you got to just be like, this guy gets targets, this guy gets opportunities. And most sports, you might correlate. Baseball, you correlate a lot. You know, NFL, we correlate wide receivers and and this sport, you just want talent. You know, I just feel like that's important.
I agree.
Another thing I finding so important, and we mentioned at the top of this lineup build, I think there is tremendous value in making sure we get more than one piece of this late game hammer. Because I don't know, you haven't played DFS that long, but me and Gov know the value of the late night hammer just as a philosophy. I do think this game goes severely under-owned because people won't want to wait to eat their cake, if you will. Gov, do you agree?
I do too. Like, I don't think the Houston DC game will actually pull as much ownership as it should.
I mean, there is a
I mean, it will still probably pull some ownership because it does look like one of the better games of the week.
Well, true, but like I'll use a psychological example because that's just the field I know best. There's a reason that casinos don't use clocks. There's a reason that casinos use neon lights and bright colors. People want to see their DraftKings lineup, whether it be mobile or desktop, where you pull up your contest and you see that green number next to whatever you're winning, whether that be doubling your money, tripling your money in first place. People want to see themselves winning. They want that balance to be in the positive. And people don't want to wait to the last game at 7 o'clock to see that. And I'm willing to wait, especially because the ownership's going to be lower. Who are we playing from this game? This is also a game where Kirkland is out. No one knows who the number one receiver is going to be for this team. But DraftKings never anticipated him being on the IR, as he is still over 10,000. I think this is right for opportunity here. But what do you guys want?
I was going to say, after looking at the stats, I kind of like Harris or Bird. Which one would you guys like to take a shot on?
Bird has been tremendously valuable for this team, and I think he has the Kirkland like skill set.
I was also leaning Bird.
Okay, because I do think he is the one-for-one replacement for Kirkland. Not to say he has the same talent or has.
At worst, he'll be the third receiver behind Burnett and Harris.
Right.
But yes, I do think he is going to step into the role.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. He's going to step in. Not to say Julian Edelman is Wes Welker, but that's kind of the cog here is that's the same type of player. Not always the same type of production, but I do think that makes sense. Now, can we play the best play on the board here and play pass?
I said I wanted to. I mean,
I don't know if we need to, though.
We don't maybe need to, but I want to see what this looks like because we said we were going to play the Dragons defense.
You can't pass on pass.
So, if we played him, though, we could do anything we wanted, or we could upgrade a position, whether that be Bird or Ellison, or even change our defense. So just like to walk people through the theory, because I think you're the most questioning of the decision, what are some of the questions you would ask yourself, Gov, if you were to go this way? Like, what would you try to do differently, the same? What are some of those things? And I see the screen share, so I'll prepare that as you answer the question.
Well, first off, you literally can't do anything. So, as is, I'd have to then figure out what I honestly believe the best play is, because Patrick's going to be a little chalky. I don't know about Bird, but he might end up being chalky considering he'll be the cheap third wide receiver. God, those eyes just stare right at you. Oh, my God. That's who killed us tonight. That's who did it.
Well,
it was him.
Talk about
blame him.
Talk about horror and the hills have eyes and all these different narratives you can build. Are we chasing too much of this Luke Kennard kind of magic, or does it make sense to play pass because of the value is there and not enough people are going to do it? Like, for example, Gov, we see this in the NFL all the time, where it's like when you get a free square, whether that be running back X, and you're like, well, he gets 3K or 4K now, I guess, and he should be 85% owned, right? Because he's the only running back. But people are going to outsmart themselves, and he's only going to be 38% owned. Therefore, I don't care how he does, he's just the best play. Like, at what point does that factor in? Or does it? I don't want to put words anymore.
No, it factors in. I'm just like...
Well, that's why I think it's good therapy, and it's good healing process to kind of talk people through this, because we don't know the answer. Like, I won a lineup that wasn't built on stream because I went with a different correlation than we went on stream. So it made up for the fact that we didn't win last week. You know, so like you can take different approaches and still be right and wrong. I just want to talk to people through the process. Because I'll be honest, what I think we should do is play the safety. You play Hill, you take out Ellison, you play Hill or Max, you just play the talent, and then you still have enough money.
You could just play Hill and Max.
Right. To pay, or you take another flyer on a guy who was drafted highly, like a Luke Kennard.
I do kind of like Akers. If we know he's active, I do really like him.
Yeah, because
I agree.
he's playing in a new offense. He would be a bring back.
I believe he had 7 targets until he got hurt week 1, right? He was
did.
7 of 7.
He did.
Yeah.
He was 7 of 7 in week 1. High draft pick, invested money. He'd be a bring back to your cheap guy. And we talk about this in correlation all the time. And we talked about this a lot last year to two guys we both really liked for different reasons. I know me and Donnie have always been fans of Stephon Diggs. And Gov had always been a fan of Josh Allen. And a lot of times people look at Josh Allen's price and Stephon Diggs as two separate things. But when they correlate, you almost have to look at the unit price. You know, what's the unit price? Is it better to buy things in bulk or is it better to buy things individually? And when you look at these two players combined, I do think that makes you different enough.
True. Now, in doing that, we have a double late game hammer, which like we're basically betting on the Houston offense. We're hoping Pass and San Antonio does well against Arlington. And then Pearson and the Sea Dragons just have to destroy Orlando like they definitely should.
And Peterson,
not a horrible lineup.
And Peterson's been the best wide receiver for the team of the Dragons, right?
Yes.
And whether you believe it or not, whether you think it's narrative, whether you think it's gossip, there has been rumors that Josh Gordon and Ben DiNucci almost came to fisticuffs. You know, and I know you were joking about the pussy comment and the Panthers comment and like, but whenever you get like a diversion of like guys trying to puff out their chest and be like, I'm more important than you, or this is happening, you know, I do think it matters. Now, whether Josh Gordon actually sits, whether there is some kind of narrative there, I do think the story coming out is going to affect the game. Maybe it affects in a positive way, and he's like, you know what, I'm going to prove that me and Josh are good, and he throws to Josh 15 times, 15 targets. I'm going to say it does the opposite, and I'm okay with if Josh Gordon explodes. I'm perfectly okay with that. Because I think Peterson is younger, more talented, and has an NFL future. And as these weeks go on, I do think we're going to see Peterson ramp up his NFL. I got to put more on film for that preseason invitation. And not to overstay my invitation, I kind of want to get us out of here with this because we've ran over an hour. Did you guys want to mention anything else?
I think that's good. I really like how the lineup turned out.
I like it as well. We got a little bit derailed, but like we're only 13 minutes over. I really don't want to stretch this out for the sake of it.
It's fine. You can blame those 13 minutes on Luke Kennard. I already do.
Exactly. But it's not just that. It's his beautiful eyes that you mentioned, Gov. So let's keep an eye on the time. Let's move it along. But I do think this is like one of the best lineups. In fact, I like this lineup so much that I'm going to double down on this one. This will be the same exact lineup I put in a single entry. I like this lineup that much. I really
It's pretty
do.
solid, to be honest.
Well, because I don't think it has any weaknesses in terms of what it could be, what it is, and what it has shown to be. Like, is there things that are going to go wrong? Is there an injury like a Kirkland? Because Kirkland got hurt on the very first play last week, right? The very
Right.
first play. Now, him getting a 0 on the very first play of an injury is not our fault. He was still a great play. If he was playing this week, he'd be a great play. So weird things can happen, like Luke Kennard derailing the show and me derailing it by continuing. But this lineup makes sense. It's a good lineup. Therefore, it's updated. It's going in. And just like we keep you guys up to date, we're going to come back next week with more topics and not over dramatize this podcast any longer. Good night. Take care. Be safe.
Have a good night, everyone.
Peace out.